All right, I hit go live. It says setting up your meeting for Facebook Live, and we'll know in a second if it's working. Done. Redirecting. So technical of me.
I'm very impressed, really.
Perfect. Perfect. It says we're live, so I guess let's just start talking and see if people join in the conversation.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I can see the questions here. I guess go start by introducing yourself, Andrew.
Yeah, so I'm Andrew. I'm the editorial director at Muck Rack. And what that means is I'm ultimately responsible for kind of growing and maintaining and working with the journalism community as it exists on Muck Rack.
That's so awesome. So you're kind of like a journalist for Muck Rack, right? You have to write stories and stuff. What exactly do you do?
Yeah, so we have a kind of like, I guess what you say, like a large database and search engine that's powered by our software, and I'm responsible for filling that search engine in with results. So that's, we monitor media outlets all over the world, and in doing so, we're able to automatically assign articles to journalist pages, either existing ones or create new ones as we monitor more and more outlets every year. So it's kind of all that data and research. And we also kind of serve as a support team for anyone using the platform.
That's so awesome. So a lot of you might have heard of Muck Rack or seen your name attached to Muck Rack. I knew nothing about it until September when I decided to go another way for
Mhm.
personal reasons. But all of my stories would be on there, all the places that my stories have showed up. But really, it's kind of a hub for journalists and people who are trying to get their stories placed.
Mhm.
Uh, what are the options when it comes to journalists using Muck Rack? Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. So the platform was initially built for public relations folks and media relations people, but the what we discovered is that a lot of those tools and a lot of those the same things that PR folks use it for is that are also beneficial to journalists. So I mentioned before we're kind of like a search engine, but think about us like I hate to use a comparison, but Google, but just limited to the media and journalism world. So it's to find tweets from journalists and other content creators, articles, the media outlets that are covering certain topics, and the people that work for them. So some of the biggest things that journalists can do is, I think you kind of split up into three kind of core feature sets. It's portfolio management, kind of like a profile with kind of your information about you as a journalist and what you do and don't write about, keeping all your articles in one place. So it's kind of a front-facing way to present yourself to friends and family, and of course prospective employers. And then we have a number of tools that I think are very useful to all journalists, but specifically freelancers and folks that work at smaller news outlets that may not have access to kind of bigger tools to help quantify their writing with social share metrics and looking at UVMs for different sites, visitor metrics, as well as I'm missing one thing. Oh yeah, setting alerts. So which also work a lot like Google alerts, but ours tend to come a little faster. And like I said before, are narrowed just to the news and media. So you can get alerts for new when your articles publish, when your friends' articles publish, and just kind of track anybody and anything that's going on within that world.
Yeah, I think it's super interesting because, like I was saying before, reporters kind of get in this rut of just, staying in their same sources, same contacts, same, places they look for stories.
Mhm.
And I was actually talking with my friend Sam Sweeney last week, who now works for Network, and he brought up the Google Alerts, which I think is very interesting,
Mhm.
especially if you're on a certain beat or you cover a very specific area in
Mhm.
your market. That can be super beneficial, and you can really be kind of the lead reporter in your area if you stay on top of things like that.
Yeah.
And you can do those things with Muck Rack, you're kind of insinuating,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Hmm.
What I really liked about Muck Rack too was the fact that we're always searching for, like, oh, I did this story, I know I did, but I can't find it. But they're literally listed under your name. If you just
Hmm.
search your name and then Muck Rack, all of my stories under there are posted, and I can see it's more evident to me like what kind of stories I like to do or things I end up on more often.
Mhm.
And that's also why I would get emails all the time from people who weren't even in Florida saying, I saw you do this story. Maybe you would be interested in this. And I'm like, how do these people know this? But I think it was probably from Muck Rack. People are searching, their business types and journalists who are covering stuff like that already. Maybe not necessarily works in some markets, but definitely in other platforms that for sure works for them.
Mhm.
What's your favorite? I mean, you get to cover or like work with a lot of people and look a lot of people's profiles.
A
Does
lot,
anything
yeah.
stick out to you? I don't even know what I'm searching for there in there, but
In terms of like topics and things, I know, I mean, I get to consider myself an extremely informed person among my friend group because I literally basically get paid to read the news all day. And just see, I find myself on some really strange places, but I'm always delighted when honestly, the thing that always sticks in my head is just ending up on like farming news sites. So I end up like really fascinated by the amount of coverage of like farm equipment and like manure and feed for your pigs. And I'm like, this is a whole other world that I don't know about.
it's so funny that you
Yeah.
say that because I come from a really small town and one of my first markets, and I'm sure a lot of reporters can relate. Your first markets, you are covering a lot of like farming news and
Mhm.
weather news. Like I
Yeah.
would literally have to check like the farming, I forget what it's called, but it's like a seasonal or monthly like newsletter about like all the farming stuff. And I would have to do a story on that. And it was kind of nice. Like all the farmers were really nice. It could be really stinky sometimes, but
Yeah,
hey, there's a lot of money in farming, and I mean they do a lot for our country. So it
they
doesn't
do.
surprise me that there's a lot of news on that.
Yeah. So that's just one example, but I end up learning more about like financial securities and
Yes.
Bitcoin and just, I mean, the list goes on and on.
Yeah. So we have a majority right now. We have a majority of TV reporters in this group. I think we have almost 800, and we
Mm,
just started like 2 months ago. So I'm super
that's
excited
awesome.
about
Yeah.
that. I would love to, expand to other platforms. I guess anything else that Muck Rack can do or that you can think of just as like a person who reads the news all day, every day to kind of get people out of their regular routine and doing great stories.
Yeah, every time I talk to a different journalist, I think the possibilities are expanded. They'll say something, I'm like, wait a minute, Muck Rack can do that, and it's because, like I said before, it was primarily made for PR people. So we're still kind of learning new things. Like, oh, that could be used for that.
Right.
So I don't know. Would it be useful to actually like look at the platform right now?
Yeah, let's do it. I have time. I have until 11. So,
Oh, very nice. I was trying to share my screen, but it says it's disabled, so I don't. It says you
oh,
might
I
need
will
to.
fix it for you.
Yeah, no
I'm the
worries.
one with all the rules. Let's see. Advanced sharing options. All participants. There, you should be able to do it now.
Let's see. Okay. Uh, okay. So here we have Muck Rack. Excuse the yellow bar there. That's just because I'm logged into this test account rather than my normal account. So when you're with everything that I'm mentioning here, there's one thing to keep in mind is that we kind of have, I guess, like you call like a tiered system. So Muck Rack is completely 100% free for all journalists. There's no freemium. There's no upcharge anywhere. You're not going to get charged for
This is
anything. It's
good
completely
because
100%, 100.
like people think reporters make not a lot of money.
Yes, which we are aware of, and we never charge anything for Muck Rack. But that being said, there is a feature set, an expanded feature set that's only available to verified journalists who are a set of. We have a whole page of criteria that we look into, but basically the long and short of it is that as long as you are a full-time working journalist, either for an outlet or freelance, you can basically be verified. So this doesn't count things like CEOs of tech companies that write for Forbes and stuff like that. I mean, we are talking full-time working journalists. So here on the page, so the kind of, you'll see we have it kind of divided up into different areas that journalists have. And the first thing I mentioned was kind of profile and portfolio management. So Andrea, I have your profile here. And as y'all can see, like she mentioned, this is the running list of articles that we've identified her byline in. And this is all automated. So it's kind of I like to say it's like set it and forget it. You remember those old like Ron Popeil like rotisserie machines that he used to say, set it and forget it. And it's great because you don't have to come back in and upload your clips, especially if you're like, oh no, I need to find a new job, but my portfolio is so out of date. This is like, it's done, it's set, it's good. But we also, that's an automated feed, but we also have the ability, journalists have the ability to upload their own clips in the form of PDFs or anything like that to what's a portfolio section. And that's what this looks like here on our friend Nikita from the Times. And this could be a place to feature maybe something looked really good in print that you were proud of. It's really a place to see like your best work, the stuff that you really want to see, the top kind of 6 things, whereas this is just, kind of everything else.
Right. It's a lot more visual too. I feel like that's something you could quickly send out to someone maybe who you met and were like, hey, take a look at my stuff.
Yeah, for sure. And we definitely encourage journalists to get their page looking really, really fresh, like Nikita's. A great, you can fill in your biography, kind of where you're from, what you do. You'll notice that she also filled in what she does cover. You can also fill in what you don't cover, which a lot of times is more important to be very clear. Like, I do not cover this. So if people send something, it's like, well, you didn't read my Muck Rack profile. And we definitely encourage people to post this on their social media and their websites, because it's just a lot of times this makes it easier to get all this stuff done, as opposed to dealing with domain fees and updating your website, making sure it looks fresh. It's kind of outsourcing it to us to make it look the best.
Yeah, I know a lot of reporters have really gotten ahead of the game, and they have like those link trees, which I think look great. But a lot of times we don't have time to do that. So this is great.
Yeah. So within the options that you see here, you can make any kind of edits that I mentioned. You can change your, like, this is where you change your bio, where you're at. You can request verification, that thing that I mentioned before, that will give you this lovely green check that you see here. That's, that gives Nikita access to those features. You can add contact information for people to reach you at. That's emails and phones. You can add up pitch preferences and say how you prefer to be pitched, time of day, what method. And this turns itself into a very concise little paragraph that she doesn't have one. I should have that up. But yeah, and fill in your social links, any awards you've won. The interview is fun. It's kind of a preset of questions just to help people get to know you better. And we also respect, journalists' privacy quite a bit. So we give them a lot of options to hide specific pieces of their profile or the entire profile itself, because, sometimes people don't want to be found, and we want to respect that too. So that's kind of just a quick, in a nutshell, of like the portfolio and profile management.
Yeah, and I really like that. I didn't even know you could do that and put your own settings. For those who are just hopping on here, like, I have never touched my Muck Rack profile. I've only looked at it. So all of that has been automated for me, but I could go in and set what I want people to pitch to me, and saying, like, before I worked in Polk County, so I could have said, I only want stories in Polk County. Well, maybe not so many people from Polk County are on Muck Rack as far as public relations, but hey, then maybe that's eliminating some pitches that I just don't want in my inbox too.
For sure, definitely.
So.
So that's the kind of portfolio piece. The next piece is trends. This is actually the newest feature that we launched, and we gave universal access to journalists, and we've already seen some folks use this. And what trends does is it just gives you the ability to measure mentions over time of keywords. So we also have some featured ones. So you'll see, for example, on the COVID-19 vaccine manufacturers, you can see this counts all the mentions of Moderna in articles across Muck Rack over the past, I'm not sure what the timeline is for this one, but it's probably the past few months. And you can see that, like, if you were Moderna, you'd be very happy to see that you're getting mentioned more often, and then followed by, our friends at Pfizer and so on. But these are just the feature ones. You can create your own here by putting in terms or a search that you had used or that you had done previously. And this just gives you a good way to kind of see, like, maybe Moderna is being talked about a lot, but who's not being talked about? Like Inovio, what's going on with them? Like, why are they flailing? So if you're covering this topic, it gives you some past things to look at.
It also, I feel like that's a good tool to use, because you may feel like you're being fair and balanced, but maybe this visually shows you, hey, yeah, we're not talking about this, and we need to talk about this more. Let's dig up some information on that.
Exactly. So, but this is something that we just launched, I think, in the last like 6 to 8 months. So it's fairly new. But you can see this is kind of how it's built out. So this one is a trend comparing all the late night hosts and their mentions, which you can see. And this one you can see much more clearly kind of the spread out of time. So this is over the past year, because Muck Rack you can track articles in Muck Rack for the past 13 months. And anything older than that is a little harder to find and put into reports. But you can see like the top people who are writing about them, the top outlets that are mentioning them, share a voice to see who's kind of, winning these mention wars. It kind of looks like it's a split tie between Fallon and Kimmel. The Jimmies are winning. And then you can see it splits it out even by the specific key terms that you're using. So you can get a lot of information just in this one report.
Yeah, that's great. And then especially if you're like on a certain topic, you can see like maybe this person talks about it a lot. Let's see where they're getting their information, and then you find a new source too.
Exactly. You can do it that way because I actually I forgot to mention I don't know why I started there, but kind of the biggest piece of Muck Rack is the homepage, which you're brought to search, which is access to our search engine. So we run on Boolean search logic. So anybody who may not be familiar with it, it's pretty technical, but we offer some help here in how to search. But you can search across specific people. So you can search if you, for example, you're a freelancer and you're trying to find who's the fashion editor at Redbook. You can just type in fashion editor and then specifically at Redbook. And you can search people for these topics. So you can see we have these two folks here, and you can focus. You can change the outlets, and you can get much more specific with some of these filters here on the left. Okay. But again, it is basically just a journalism and media search engine, so it's good to think about it that way. And then oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. I was just interrupting. It's so much easier to interrupt on Zoom nowadays because everything is just a tiny bit lagged. So I find myself interrupting people all the time.
Yeah. We still haven't quite figured out wait, nope, you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then you see we have these kind of 3 tabs. So you think that these are each kind of their own siloed little search engines or different modes. So you can see that this is just what this gives you is mentions of fashion and editor in articles at Redbook specifically, but you could take out that Redbook piece and just search for like fashion editor. You could search for people's names. So if you're covering your local city hall, you could put in the name of your mayor. Or any of the council people, things like that. And you can see past coverage in specific outlets. You can also narrow it to specific locations. So if you only want to see in certain, 3 cities, 4 cities, or we also have access to markets, which counts your local kind of TV markets. Think about it that way, but you could put in, you could just choose Philadelphia, and that'll just pull up these results from outlets in the Philadelphia metro area.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, so a lot of really great filtering tools here. But then within each of these, you can save this search and come back to it later. And then you can also create an alert that way, or you can also create a trends report that we just looked at from these searches and expand it out that way, depending on how you want to use the information that you're seeing in your searches.
And I want to say, some journalists may be looking at this and saying, okay, well, why do I want to see other people's work, just to compare myself? But what I've really found throughout my time as a journalist, you start and you really feel like this is a competitive market, when really at the end of the day, we have the same exact goal, and that's to tell somebody's story, inform the public. And I really suggest vetting out and searching out other journalists in your area or in your beat to say, hey, I cover the same thing. And while you may not share the same information, maybe your station isn't willing to cover something, but the other person would be interested in that. I see no problem with doing that, because at the end of the day, we have the same goal, the same job essentially. And so doing this could also lead you to someone you didn't know was in your area. I'm still great friends with the newspaper reporters in Polk County, and we would help each other out all the time.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really great point to make, Andrea. And I think that kind of that spirit of competition, but also helping each other out is, I think, even stronger than ever these days, just with, the gutting of local journalism that's unfortunately been happening for the past few years. But I definitely have seen a lot more renewed interest in reaching out to your fellow reporters, even on the same beat. And alternatively, especially if you like, I think what you just said is really helpful if you're changing beats and you're getting into a new area that you just have no idea at. So if you go from covering the police department to the city hall, there's a little crossover there, but there's a whole new language you need to learn and a whole new set of people, so you can catch up and read what's been covered about the city council or the city hall, and it can also help you kind of catch up and educate yourself in that way.
That's a great point too, because when you're first starting out, and even for people who've been in it forever, your contract is 2-3 years, and sometimes you're onto a new market and you have to relearn everything all over again. So that's a great point.
Yeah. So that was, make sure to go through the search engine. But then the last piece is just kind of a few tools that we have here at the end. The first one is actually one of my personal favorites. It's called Who Shared My Link? And what it is you're able to take any article, preferably yours, of course, and you just pop it in here and you can calculate shares. So what you can see is when you pop this in here, it can tell you, it tells you who wrote it. I don't see any shares on this one, but actually what I think usually
So I want to interrupt you for a second because Catherine Rose just commented. A lot of people are probably working right now, but Catherine just asked, she says, is this a paid subscription? And Andrew said, for the most part, no. The expanded part is, but can you touch on that again, Andrew?
Yeah, for sure. So in terms of like a subscription, there's no paid subscription. So everything on Muck Rack that I'm demonstrating now is completely 100% free. But there is like a tiered system whereby you get access to more features if you are a verified journalist. And that's something that my team spends its days doing, just making sure that people are indeed who they are and that they're full-time working journalists that are either freelance or working at an outlet. So it's basically, as long as you're a full-time journalist, you can get verified and get access to all these great tools.
Yeah. And I would highly recommend checking it out because like I said, I had seen it and I saw my name on there and I was like, who's compiling all my stories? But once I looked further into it, I was like, this is kind of interesting. And until I sat down with you right now, because this is literally the first time I've ever talked to Andrew, I didn't know the full scope of it.
So I found a more widely shared article. So our friend MJ Lee at CNN, you can see. So I think what I mentioned before is that this is a really great tool, especially for freelance journalists and folks that work in maybe smaller newsrooms that don't have access to this kind of social engagement data that maybe some of your bigger players might have. But you can see here that you can see the amount of times it was shared on Facebook and Pinterest. Unfortunately, Twitter cut off their access years ago, so you can't see like Twitter shares. But you can see who shared the link on Twitter. And so you can use this tool to kind of quantify your writing, or to use it to find kind of people that are interested in your work and sharing it, and kind of build out your network that way. And you can also see like, the breakdown of the number of people that have shared this link as well.
Oh, I'm definitely gonna have to share this. And so there's another group, news directors won't be happy about this, but there's a group called TV to PR, and it's just for women looking to transition from TV to PR. And as storytellers and reporters in general, we don't love numbers. And how are we ever supposed to know how many people have seen our story? But this is great because including, like, we're always told to put numbers and quantify your impact on your resume. Those numbers would be able to be put in there.
Yeah, definitely. And this engagement is the full sum of the social engagement. And this is the number of people. So this is based on the number of people following all these journalists on Twitter. So the potential like reach from those journalist shares. And then this is the UVM number, which means unique visitors per month. And that's provided by our partner at SimilarWeb, which is a pretty big player in that area. And it just helps quantify all that stuff. But you can also export this. And there's a click to tweet link there at the bottom. But this is a feature that's available to all users on Muck Rack, regardless if you're verified or not. So this is why it's one of my favorites, is because it's just the most widely available. Kind of no matter who you are, you can use this tool.
Yeah, and I just want to say again before we wrap up is that there is a tool under your bio that you can update for pitch preferences. I think that's the coolest thing. I just hope people who are landing on their page check it, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. And so I wish I had prepared. I just had a
Okay.
page available that had that. But when you fill out that information, that actually goes right here. So it's fairly obvious. And all the answers and the pitch preferences here, as you pick them, it automatically puts it into a concise paragraph, combining all your answers and then any additional notes you have.
Perfect. So personal question.
Yeah.
First of all, what made you decide to do this? Because this is a very, I feel like, niche, unique job. So I'll start there.
Yeah, I honestly kind of fell into it. I previously worked, before joining Muck Rack, now over 5 years ago, losing track of time. I worked at a company called Gorkana, which was basically the same exact thing as this, as Muck Rack. It was a UK-based company. I worked for them for 5 years. And just after, working with them, I got a really unique set of tools of like journalism research and media. And yeah, it came over to Muck Rack, and because Muck Rack just what I admire the most is just Muck Rack's dedication to helping the journalism community,
Yeah.
and doing what we can to provide them tools and insights, and our great Muck Rack daily newsletter, which I totally recommend everyone get. It's a really snappy take on the day's news as journalists are discussing it. Also includes some fun GIFs when appropriate, I promise.
Is it GIFs or is it GIFs? Because I'm still stuck on that whole debate.
Yeah, I think I was on the GIFs train, and then everyone wanted me to get on the GIFs train. I think I'm on the GIFs train now, but I think it's still kind of preference. But everyone wants you to say GIFs, I think.
Okay, I'll have to try that because I've been saying GIF.
I think I used to be a GIF person. So yeah, that's just kind of a bit of my history. But I really, just from working there for 5 years, when it was about time to leave after they were acquired by another company, I thought, what am I going to do with this random set of knowledge and tools that I have of like database management as it relates to journalism in the media? And Muck Rack found me, and I'm just glad to be here.
That's so great and so interesting because I always tell people, I said, we're storytellers and we sometimes feel stuck in the fact that, well, that's all we know how to do.
Mm-hmm.
But these skills translate into so many different opportunities.
Totally.
And I'm also kind of curious. You said, do you talk to some journalists on a regular basis? Do you get to talk to different kinds or?
Yeah, definitely. I spend my time talking with some folks that are using the system and have questions, and they give me some great ideas. And just from my years of working here, I've built up some journalism friends over the years, and always appreciate their insights. Yeah, I love hearing how as an avid news reader, I just love kind of, seeing how the sausage get made, and, more interestingly, the people behind it. Because, sometimes I think a lot of people who read the news forget that it's being written by people and not just, computers.
Organization.
Yeah, exactly.
I really try to harp that, and I really try to teach our experts, the journalists are people just like me and you, and they're trying to do their job, and they really do care about what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so to not give them a hard time, and to do your due diligence too, and give them great tips and story ideas.
Absolutely.
Anything you want to say as far as like wrapping up?
No, I think I think this has been a great combo. I love walking through Muck Rack with you, and I guess the last thing I'd say is that, explore, play around with it. It's there for you to use, again, totally free. And you also have access in the lower right hand corner. You see there's this little chat icon. You can use that to ask any question, big or small, and we'll get back to you within like 12 to 24 hours. So you have access to people help also.
Perfect. And so all people have to do if they're interested in this, they just go to muckrack.com. It's completely free, and they can just really kind of dive into it. And then I guess come back to this video, or I'm sure you have video tutorials of some sort on there as well to kind of show them how to use it.
Yeah, for sure. So it kind of gives you some kind of quick walkthrough guides as you get started. There's a great page here kind of explaining all the benefits of having a Muck Rack profile at muckrack.com/journalists. And yeah, we also have a help center. But again, like it's a pretty intuitive tool to use. It's something we're super proud of. But you know, if something doesn't immediately obvious or not, then just chat us and we'll point you in the right direction.
Perfect. Thanks, Andrew. I appreciate your time.
Of course.
Now I'm going to figure out how to, here, stop live stream. Thanks, everyone.